Hello and welcome back. Here we are again this week, and we're going to talk about how it is or why it is so important that you find a realtor that's going to work for you and help you to be successful when you're purchasing your first home. So as always, I've got Jay here from Remax Excellence, and he's going to tell you some of the things you want to look for when you're selecting a real estate agent who's going to help take care of you and make sure that you are successful as you purchase your first home here in Edmonton. Go ahead, Jay.
Hey, Josh, thanks for that. And you know what, guys, it doesn't even matter if you're purchasing or selling your first home or your last home. These things really all matter for every type of realtor that you're going to hire. So really the big thing that we have to start out with is managing your expectations with the reality of the current market. So lots of times it would seem like maybe we're being like a Debbie Downer, so to speak, but we really have to drive reality into this experience. So either as the seller or the buyer, you're going to have these big emotions and you're going to have a big ask from our marketplace. And so it's really the realtor's job is just to like make sure we understand that your expectations line up with what the reality of the market is. And so there's really a few different ways that we can do that. And so the first part of that really is just how are we communicating with you? So we're going to start out and share some relevant data that's going to help you understand what houses are selling for or what you should be paying for the type of home that you're actually looking for. And so the next one really is like negotiation experience. Make sure that you understand that we can recognize the fact, is a house overpriced or is a house underpriced? And so as we're looking at the listings, that's kind of something that we're playing with, like, we know what house should sell for in this neighborhood, this type of home. This one's over, this one's under. Lots of people ask this question, hey, is every house, can we negotiate 10 or 15,000 less? Not necessarily. Some we're not negotiating any, some are paying more than list price, some way less. So that'll depend. The last one is really market knowledge. So that's how we decide the price that you should be paying for the home that you've decided that you would like to have a look at. So
No. Jay, sometimes what if a house is like overpriced on the market? You go in with a really great offer that makes sense in the market, but they're like, no, they kind of stand by their list price.
So not every seller is using logic. So sometimes we have, sellers that have got an emotional price attached to their property. And so we'll see that. Like I was just looking at one with a client the other day. Average day on market in this particular neighborhood was about 17 to 19 days, somewhere in there. This house had been on for 60 some days, but it was 45,000 overlisted and they hadn't reduced their price yet. Talked to the agent. He's like, they're stuck here at this number. So sometimes we can't move a seller, but lots of times using actual logic, it tends to win over emotion. So that kind of takes us to that next thing is like, how do we find your perfect home? Right. So we're digging through and we're doing all these things. And so really there's like 5 things that I like to talk to people about when we're searching for their perfect home. Right. One of the most important things is like the crime rate. So lots of times people say, you know what, I can buy so much more home in, neighborhood A, B, or C. Right. And it's like, okay, I understand that, but the crime rate is significantly higher, hence the lower house price. So are you sure that you want to buy in this particular neighborhood, right? And the crime rate definitely dials into the next point of like this resale. If you're buying a house that costs less, in this particular neighborhood, when you go to resale, you're going to have to sell for less. And so it will affect your resellability. So we need to consider these things because maybe you're buying in a really superheated market for, it's really hard to buy a home, so you don't have much decision. But when you go to sell, you might be selling into a buyer's market where there's tons of homes for sale. And so your house is even going to be harder if it's not in the right spot, right? So that's something to really consider.
Perfect.
Another
And
thing,
Jay,
yeah,
I know that often we're working with people who are fairly new to Edmonton,
yeah.
whether it be newcomers to Canada or just interprovincial moves or just new to Edmonton from another city here in Alberta. But if you don't really know the city, you've got to really rely on your real estate agent to know where in the city is a desirable place to live, where you're going to have access to the schools, the crime rate, that kind of thing. So that's really where your expertise really comes in, doesn't it?
Yeah, the resale, those are the things that we'll factor in when we're sort of searching for this home. And if you are remote or you don't know what's going on, then, we're going to show you on the map and how it's going to work. So future use, big thing. Um, a lot of my buyers that I've been working with, right, 3 to 5 years, they're reselling and they're moving forward, and sometimes that's just situational. But what I've started to dial in is just like, where do you intend to be in 3 to 5 years, and is there any way we can make this home, last longer than that 3 to 5 year cycle that seems to be so normal? Lots of times it's not possible just because of budget or the house type, but sometimes we can get you into a little bit more home that you actually are needing right now, but the future use of that home is something that's super important. So that comes down to the size, right? Is it just big enough right now, or should we try and buy a little bit of a bigger home, make sure that it's going to work for you now as well as in the future? Or maybe you're downsizing, and so we can maybe consider a little bit of a smaller home. You're a little bit cramped for a short period, but you can stay there longer. So these things all are kind of making these factors as to, the type of home you buy. And the last one, of course, is affordability. Making sure that the house we're buying is affordable now, and it's not going to cramp your lifestyle as you're going through and as you're wanting to make these changes. Sometimes a lot of people are like, I don't really care if I don't have a holiday. I'm going to buy a different home, and instead of going on a holiday, I'm just going to have a staycation, and tends to be fine for the first couple of years. And then in year 3, they're like, oh man, I wish I could have a holiday, but I just can't. I'm spending too much on my mortgage. So we kind of calculate those things and help you make logic-based decisions, and just a little bit of emotion driven in there to make sure that you're happy in the home. You love where you live, but you can also, afford, and it doesn't feel too hard to live there, right? You're happy being there.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Jay, for sharing all of that. Those are the things you really got to look for when you're selecting a real estate agent. I, of course, recommend Jay. He's amazing. His team is fantastic. They take good care of us. If you like the content that we're bringing you here each week, make sure you click like on this video, maybe drop a comment, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell for notifications. And we will have another one here for you next week.